What's going on, guys, and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be showing you how to play the Vienna Gambit like a Grandmaster. So the Vienna Gambit starts after e4, the black plays e5, now we play knight to c3, and we're defending the pawn on e4, and black has a couple of continuations. They have bishop c5, bishop b4, knight f6, knight c6. So what will we do if the knight comes out to f6? First, let's take a look. We will play f4 here, and this is called the Vienna Gambit. If he captures the pawn on f4 here, you will push, and now the knight has no squares to go, but he can only go knight to g8. Now you want to prevent the queen coming out to h4 with the move knight to f3. Now, the black pieces can still fight back with a move like d6, but now you're just up like 0.5 or 0.6, and here you want to even pin this, the pawn here, and you just have a better position from the opening. This pawn's gonna die, and then this pawn's gonna die after that. So yeah, this is what happened. But he obviously here he can also play queen to e7, but now we can play queen to e2, and now it's even worse for him because he has to go knight back since we unpinned ourselves. Now knight to f3, we always cover up this h4 square, and now queen to e6, and this is just a way better position. You're gonna go d4 and you will capture back the pawn. So that's what happens if you play knight to f6 and he captures the pawn. What if he defends the pawn with a knight? Well, now as you can see here, the knights will be just kicked out rudely, and now he has two moves because all the other squares are going to be covered. If he plays knight to g4 here, I will just kick it out with h3 probably. Or even better is probably e5, just trying to dislodge this knight from defending this one. So he has to play knight to g6 or knight to c6. But if knight to c6, he will play e5, and then the knight has to again go to g8. In this position, if he pins the pawn to the king, you cannot go queen to e2 because you hang the pawn on d4. So just go bishop to e2, and now he has to go knight to g8 because you're blocking the pin. And now you can play knight to f3 to cover up the h4 square and get ready to castle. d6 by black is the best move, just trying to get rid of this pawn in the center. And now I just recommend castling, because if he says, oh, you just blundered the pawn, then knight takes e5. And you will now see that bishop to b5 check, and after this you have rook to e1, and the queen is pinned to the king, and you're actually completely winning here. So that's what happens if the knight goes to c6. But if it goes to g6, now we will again go to e5 here. If he goes queen to e7, now we go queen to e2. And we block this pin on our king. And now we're threatening to take again. Knight to g8 is the best move. Now we go knight to f3. Just preparing to get rid of this queen to h4 idea. Now d5, you just take the pawn. And like, these two knights variation is very bad for black. So you will probably be winning a lot of games. What if he plays knight to c6 here? Here I recommend the move bishop to c4, trying to target the pawn on f7. Now if knight to f6 happens, I mean, you can just continue developing with d3, and now you will prepare f4. He will probably play something like bishop b4. Now you will play knight to e2, getting ready to go f4 and castle. If he trades here, you just take back with the knight. And now f4 is just gonna be nice because after we castle, this rook is gonna be opened up. Also, if the knight comes to a5 here, what you need to do here is slide the bishop back to b3. And if he takes, you take with the a pawn, so the rook opens up. Okay, another line after knight to c3, knight to c6, bishop to c4 is the copycat variation when black goes bishop to c5. Now you will take advantage of the bishop not defending g7 anymore and go queen to g4 here and attack the pawn on g7. Now queen to f6 is what they usually play, and now knight to d5 attacking the queen is the best move. And you might say, what? But that hangs f2 with check. Okay, so now we just go queen to d1, and actually this isn't made because the bishop defends that. And you might notice, for example, if he defends the pawn, you're gonna go knight to h3 defending the queen, and now you might notice that the queen is almost trapped. You will probably go d3 here, defending the bishop and setting up c3, and now you're also gonna just avoid taking pawn on c7 because you want to just trap this queen on d4 instead. So now bishop to e7 is probably the best move, but now you can drop back to f3, and this is still hanging, but now you're threatening check, and then you win this, so this is completely lost for black. They can instead, after d3, also move the bishop back to b6. Here, just move the queen back to f3 again, and yeah, that's basically it for this line. If instead here they play the move g6, just covering this, now I like just sliding back the queen and threatening scholar's mate, and a lot of people will hang that. But if they don't and play something like this, you will play knight ge2, just stopping the knight from coming to d4. Okay, they can also defend the pawn with the pawn. They can also defend the e5 pawn with the d6 pawn. But here you will attack it once again with the knight. And now after the other knight defends, you will pin it with bishop b5. And bishop d7, don't hurry up and take this, because after you do it, now after you take the pawn, he's gonna take on e4. So instead of that, we want to wait here and defend the pawn on e4, and then we'll take this pawn. And now they have no other choice but take king on f4 here. We take back with our bishop, and now a6, just saying where is this bishop gonna go. You will take the knight here, and you will just castle. And in this position, you have the open f-file for your rook, and he's down in development, and this bishop is just not going anywhere. Now the best play style to play with black against the Vienna Gambit is d5. After d5, you will take on e5, knight takes e5, and now you can choose for two different moves, queen to f3 and knight to f3. Now I recommend queen to f3 because it's easy to learn. If he takes on c3, you will take back with the b pawn, and later we will push d4. If he doesn't take and instead plays knight to c6, we will pin this with bishop b4. And if he does something like take here, now we take with a d pawn. So if he plays knight to c6 and then he takes our pawn, and then he takes our bishop, then we take with a d pawn because we want our bishop to come out. But if he takes here, then we take with a b pawn. So did he play knight to c6 yet? Is the question. And then we will decide with what to take. Here there's also the move f5. But after f5, I recommend d3. Now the knight can capture c3, takes on c3. And now if they know this dangerous line d4, then I would recommend just going queen to g3, sliding this over. And then if d takes here, just bishop e2. And you will see here, a lot of people will fall for this trap, where you will just go bishop h5, And if he blocks, you will sacrifice the bishop. And now you're completely winning. You win the queen here. I mean, it's lost. Yeah, that's basically all they can do here against. Yeah, if they do something else, like, for example, after knight c6, bishop b5, they can also go bishop d7. But now you just take on e4 twice, and that's, he can't do anything basically, because you're just gonna develop your knight. He can also go bishop c5. After bishop c5, the Vienna Gambit goes f4. Now, if he takes on f4, again, we will play d4. And this will get captured back to the move. If he goes queen to h4 here, we will go king to e2, bonk clouding. But this is actually fine, because the knight will attack the queen, and then we'll take back this pawn. And if he after f4 takes a knight on g1, then rook takes g1, and after knight to c6, we will simply take the pawn on e5, he takes, and then we go d4, dislodging the knight from c6. Knight to g6 was probably the best move. And now you want to develop your dark squared bishop, and then after c6 and d5, you want to develop your light square bishop like this. And lastly, if he goes here bishop to b4, then we will play d4. And if he takes on d4, we have queen takes d4. And this is like the only time that queen coming out early is good, because we're pressuring the pawn on g6. If knight to f6, for example, we will go bishop to e3. And if he takes our pawn, then we always take on g7 and ruin his castle. So maybe even bishop to d3. And here queen to f6 is probably better. Then we keep the queens on the board. He can't go d5 because we just take on c8. And you'll have a way better chance of winning this. If he takes here, for example, queen takes e4 is a check, because then he would have been able to take our rook. So that's going to be it for the Vienna Gambit. Go practice this with your friends and beat them at chess. Bye.